President Donald Trump's policies are having a major impact on the American currency.
In a bold move shaking global finance, African nations are fast-tracking non-dollar payment systems, right as Donald Trump signals a possible return to economic hardball. With renewed fears of U.S. sanctions and financial pressure, countries across the continent are pioneering ways to trade in local currencies, bypassing the dollar altogether. It's about sovereignty, resilience, and redefining who gets to control the rules.
Africa's push for local currency payment systems is finally making gains. The goal is to bring less costly trade to a continent long impacted by dollar transactions.
What does this mean for Africa and for Washington? This story was first reported by Reuters. Let's unpack the implications of this high-stakes financial pivot. Africa's costly dependence on the dollar. African trade has long been plagued by steep transaction costs tied to the US dollar. Under the old model, a simple trade over $200 million between two African nations could slice off anywhere from 10% to 30% in conversion fees, thanks to correspondent banking systems tied to the dollar, meaning billions of dollars drain from intracontinental commerce annually. In stark contrast, Africa has launched the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, or PAPSS, which since 2022 has enabled direct local currency transactions. Now operational in 15 nations with 150 banks, PAPSS files show these transaction costs plummeted to approximately 1%, saving the continent an estimated $5 billion each year. That staggering number isn't based on vague optimism, it's built on hard data. As Africa gets plugged into PPSS Instant Payment System, African Currency Marketplace, and PPSS Guard, businesses, from Zambian farmers to Kenyan manufacturers, now complete cross-border trades in their own currencies.
Africa's push for local currency payment systems, once little more than an aspiration, is finally making concrete gains, bringing the promise of less costly trade to a continent long hobbled by resource-sapping dollar transactions.
That sharp cut in FX charges means more cash for reinvestment, better competitive pricing, and a shot at closing the continent's trade imbalance, where 84% of trade flows outside Africa. These gains come amid surging digital payments. In sub-Saharan Africa alone, mobile money transactions grew 20% in volume and 16% in value during 2024, with over 1.68 trillion processed via mobile wallets. That shows one thing clearly: Africa has the demand, the tools, and the talent to chart a new financial path. PAPSS and the birth of a continental market. With momentum fueled by both necessity and innovation, Africa's PAPSS has rapidly grown into a multi-sided financial infrastructure. When it launched in January 2022 with just 10 banks, it was considered experimental. Fast forward to today, 15 countries actively use it, and more than 150 commercial banks are linked through 3 integrated systems: Instant Payment System, African Currency Marketplace, and PAPSS Guard.
At the start of the year, many expected the dollar to actually strengthen, with the president's trade war seen as more damaging to foreign economies.
These tools allow payments to settle in a few seconds or minutes versus weeks under the old model, especially for trade corridors plagued by thin FX markets. The African Currency Marketplace, unveiled with Afreximbank, matches FX demand and supply across borders, transforming settlement delays into real-time execution and lowering counterparty risk. As PAPSS CEO Mike Ogbalu noted, external interest from non-African institutions is growing, proof that those savings aren't limited to Africa but can reshape broader trade partners. This homegrown market reflects strategic foresight. By facilitating currency exchange directly, Africa reduces layered exposure to dollar volatility and correspondent bank dependencies. As a result, African firms, exporters, and SMEs now avoid hard currency borrowing, opening more sustainable liquidity channels. Meanwhile, growth in mobile and instant payments complements this. PAPSS in Ghana processed nearly 313 million transactions worth approximately 629 billion Ghanaian cedis in 2023, underlining how local digital networks are ready to support the shift. All of this signals a continent equipped with an emerging financial ecosystem, efficient, sovereign, scalable, and finally ready to tell a different story than the one told by dollar dominance. Economic motives, not political agendas. Despite the ripple effects, the core drivers behind Africa's shift aren't geopolitical statements. They're outright economic necessity. Officials from PAPSS and development institutions consistently stress that their mission isn't de-dollarization as a political strategy, but rather slashing inefficiencies and empowering intra-African trade. As Mike Ogbalu said bluntly, our goal, contrary to what people might think, is not de-dollarization, but removing the barriers caused by scarce third-party global currencies. The financial rationale is clear. With high transport costs already inflating African trade by 50% more than global averages, FX barriers only compound the problem. Meanwhile, the International Finance Corporation has begun offering loans to businesses denominated in local currencies, easing currency mismatch for firms not earning dollars. PAPSS aligns closely with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement's vision, namely strengthening regional value chains, boosting SMEs, and accelerating economic integration. G20 finance meetings in Cape Town heard from South Africa's central bank governor, Lesetja Kganyago, that instant local payments are a structural need to uplift Africa's economic fabric. What Africa is building is practical, not symbolic, lowering costs, increasing liquidity, and giving local businesses more breathing room. And as mobile wallet penetration continues to surge, with billions of transactions moving daily, these innovations are marrying policy ambition with real-world usage, geopolitical crosswinds, and Trump's shadow. It's true that this move aligns with a global wave of countries exploring dollar alternatives. China, Russia, and BRICS members have been floating their own non-dollar systems, triggering ripples of geopolitical concern. But here's where the geo meets the local. While regional leaders insist their goals are economic, Washington sees it differently.
Welcome to the United States. If you'd like to participate in the greatest, most successful country ever. I mean, we're doing better than ever. And you're going to see these numbers soon. We've never had numbers like this. We've never had investment like this.
Former U.S. President Trump, who's warned openly about countries trying to unseat the dollar, threatened retaliatory tariffs, even promising 100% duties if nations back alternative currencies via platforms like BRICS on his Truth Social platform, and said countries would have to say hello to tariffs and goodbye to America. More recently, during the 2025 BRICS summit, Trump signaled a possible 10% tariff on nations moving away from dollar dependency, implicitly sending a caution to African nations engaged in PAPSS. These signals create uncertainty. Governments face political risk from trade retaliation.
But I think chances are quite good that we will see some additional tariffs. It's even possible that we could see some sanctions against certain individuals in South Africa.
Yet Africa's response hasn't been to backtrack. They're communicating that PAPSS is homegrown, pragmatic, and economically urgent. They're pushing back through G20 dialogues, working with development partners like the IFC, and reassuring global markets that lower costs, not ideological positioning, is their North Star. In short, Africa is taking a pragmatic stand. Even beneath the shadow of Trump's warnings, the business case is too strong to ignore. Tech adoption and the mobile money revolution. Africa's non-dollar payments revolution sits atop a broader digital transformation. Mobile money networks have exploded. GSMA data shows mobile money transactions in 2024 surged 20% in volume to 108 billion and 16% in value to $1.68 trillion. Merchant payments grew 21%. International remittances reached $34 billion, with volumes growing fastest, rising 28% in 2023, the fastest growing ecosystem use case. P2P, merchant, and cross-border use cases are driving mass adoption as account wallets go from novelty to norm. In parallel, national digital currencies and systems are emerging. Nigeria's Afrigo Pay launched a domestic card scheme in January 2023 and already reached over 3 million cards by March 2024. Ghana pilots its eCedi digital currency, aimed at closing the digital inclusion gap. Meanwhile, Ghana's PAPSS saw 312 million transactions worth 629.5 billion Ghanaian cedis in 2023, reinforcing that infrastructure is scaling fast. These systems interlink. A farmer in Zambia can accept mobile money or eCedi payments, then clear payments via PAPSS directly with Kenyan suppliers. What's key is interoperability. digital services are converging, maturing, and powering a genuine continental payments network. This isn't about theory. It's happening at lightning speed, powered by young entrepreneurs, fintechs, and central banks. The result? Africa is not just adopting digital finance, it's building an ecosystem, one that can thrive independently, efficiently, and connectively. The road ahead: growth, risk, and global potential. Looking forward, Africa's payments renaissance holds boundless promise, but it won't be without speed bumps. PAPSS still faces adoption constraints. Intracontinental trade remains fracturing. Data on volumes is incomplete. FX liquidity gaps persist, and banks need wider technical capabilities. The digital divide remains real. Uneven power supply, limited rural connectivity, and financial literacy shortfalls can stall progress. But partnerships are scaling across the public and private sector. The IFC is issuing local currency loans, the G20 continues to support inclusive financial systems, and domestic fintech ecosystems, from Safaricom's M-Pesa, operating in over 10 countries, to Eco-Pesa-style community currencies, are proving adaptability and grassroots power. As Africa builds out PAPSS's FX marketplace and global institutions test integrations, external interest, from Europe to Asia, is growing. All of this points to an emergent truth. Once dismissed as peripheral, African payments infrastructure now looks to influence global settlement flows. If Africa can sustain the momentum, overcome infrastructure gaps, and avoid geopolitical crossfires, including trade threats tied indirectly to Trump-era dollar dominance, this could grow into a global non-dollar settlement contender. That doesn't mean abandoning the dollar. It means layering choice and resilience into the system. And for African SMEs, traders, and everyday consumers, that difference could be transformative. The continent is now scripting its own financial future, and the world is watching. As Trump-era policies loom once again, Africa isn't waiting to be cornered. By developing non-dollar payment alternatives, nations are laying the groundwork for financial independence and a stronger bargaining position on the world stage. Whether this signals a new monetary revolution or just a regional hedge, one thing is clear: the rules are changing, and Africa is no longer playing defense. A big thanks to Reuters for breaking this developing story. If you found this insight powerful, like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments. This is only the beginning.